Hello there, 11th graders. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today. And welcome to our second online class for physics. So, before we start, I would like to thank you all to put a lot of effort into completing this digital lessons and all of the exercises that we have given to you, because that is pretty helpful for you to keep on track of the things that we have learned at school. And of course, it's going to help you out to keep on learning and developing your skills as a professional. So, with that being said, let's continue with our physics class for week 11. And this week we're going to study topic 5.05, Engineering Design Part 2. So before we start, we have to follow exactly the same specifications that we had last week. Log into Agilex, enter the Google Classroom, download the document for your summary, save it in the physics folder. And the last one is very important. You need to save your file with this name. So you have an example of what it should look like right at the bottom. And you have your code, for example, number 6, name, Krishna Ochoa, and grade and section, 8A. I noticed that last week a lot of students did not name the document in this way. And that's part of the things that I evaluate in the rubric. So make sure you have it just like this today. Right, so as we move, remember to take notes on the Word documents. That's something extremely important because that is going to help you out to keep track of the things we are learning. And of course, that is going to help you out to remember better all of the content that we have here. So if at any time you need to pause the video because I'm going too fast, or you need to go back, you can go ahead and do it. Let's continue. We have our topic of 4 is 5.05, Engineering Design Part 2. And we have to begin with our end in mind. So for this week, our end in mind is use a standardized process to generate an engineering proposal to give a logical solution to a problem in the surroundings. So this is the first thing that you need to copy in your Word document. So make sure that you do it and you come back after you have just done it. Right, so we have engineering design, number 2. So what is it? This process was created to develop, evaluate, and test potential solutions to a problem. So, does that remind you of something? Probably it does, because there is another process that is quite similar to this one, and it is called the scientific method. And the scientific method is a problem-solving method that is used to find a logical solution to a possible inconvenience that you have encountered. Alright, so it's pretty similar. But I really like this method, the one that we are learning today, because it is a little bit more specific with a couple of things. And of course, since you are already in 11th grade, you need to be more specific and detail everything a little bit more. So let's continue. We have step number 1, which is define the problem. Figure out who has a problem, what it is, and why it needs to be solved. So this is extremely important, and it's the first step of our method. And we need to be very specific on the things that we have to study. Because if we are very specific on what we are going to analyze and study, it's way more possible that it's going to be easier for us to find a solution for it. Step number 2, define subproblems. Break your main problem down into smaller, easier to solve soft problems. So what happens is that sometimes you have a quite big problem that might not really have a clear solution. But once you break down this huge problem into subproblems, it's easier to focus on small particles. And after a while, if you have solved several of those subproblems, it's possible that you have a clear idea on how to solve the main problem. All right, we have step number 3 and 4. Number 3, determine the criteria. Decide what conditions would need to be met for the problem to be considered solved. Number 4, determine the constraints. Determine what limitators are in place before any solution is considered. So for number 3 in the criteria, you need to specify the things that you have to focus on, the most important aspects that need to be solved in order to consider the problem solved, and determine your constraints. You need to determine what limitators you're going to have once you start working. Because if you take them into consideration, you can also take action plans in order to avoid them or in order to solve them during the process. Then we have number 5 and number 6. Number 5, prioritize the criteria and constraints. Put the criteria and constraints in order from most important to least important. So, I'm pretty sure that once you start analyzing a problem, you will have many solutions and many criteria that you would like to meet. But sometimes it is not possible to meet every one of them. So it's better to focus on the most important ones, and by following them, it's way possible that you're going to have the chance of solving the problem you are analyzing. And lastly, number 6, generate solutions. Brainstorm, evaluate, and refine your ideas, and choose the best solution based on your list of priorities. So it's necessary to take into consideration all of the steps you have followed so far in order to choose and generate the best solution for the problem you are analyzing. So now that we already have all of the process that we need to follow, we're going to take a look at an example. So number 1 is a problem. You have to define your problem. So there is a large number of residents injured by vehicles driven by reckless drivers. So this is just an example, but let's say that you have seen around your community that there are many reckless drivers and many people have been hurt because of the same problem. So this is what you want to analyze, right? What is the next step? You have to break it down into sub-problems. So drivers speeding in the zone or pedestrians not adhering to safety rules. So once you start observing the problem a little bit more, you have noticed that there are different drivers that are speeding way too much inside the zone. But you have noticed as well that there are several pedestrians that do not use the sidewalks appropriately, or they do not obey the zebra crossing lines as well. All right, next step, we need our criteria. So remember, criteria are the most important aspects that you have to focus on. So what are the people needs? If you have noticed that people have been hurt because of reckless drivers, so what do they actually need? Were they hurt because they do not actually use the zebra crossing lines, they do not obey signs, or they do not use sidewalks? What's going on in there? Are there any environmental needs? And what I mean by this is, are there enough signs around the zone that actually communicate information to the drivers? Because probably they are speeding up because they haven't seen a pedestrian crossing sign around. Or they might be speeding up because there are not speed limits specified in signs like this one here. Okay, next one we have number 4, determine the constraints. And are there any laws that can prevent you from moving on with your solution? So, whenever you want to apply a solution to your community, you need to make sure that it has a legal background. Because if it does not have a legal background, or if what you want to do it's even illegal, you won't be able to put your solution going on. So you need to make sure that you know what you are doing. Then you have, is there a maximum amount of money for the solution? So you need to adapt all of your plans to your budget. So if you are coordinating all of the solutions by yourself, so you need to analyze how much money you want to invest into solving the problem. Because it won't make sense that you want to apply a solution that you don't have enough money for. And just in case you have sponsors, you need to talk to your sponsors and find out how much money they are going to give you to put into practice the solution that you want to apply, right? Then we have number 5, prioritize the criteria and constraints. Remember, focus only on the most important things. Or just like it says here, focus just on one thing. Pedestrians, signs, or drivers. So according to your budget, you have to focus either on pedestrians, signs, or drivers. So what would you like to do? Would you like to invest in the education of pedestrians and actually making them aware of how to appropriately use sidewalks, or what are the consequences of not obeying signs and traffic lights? That'll be a possible solution. Or would you like to invest in signs for speeding limits around the zone, or would you like to directly talk to the drivers? What would you like to do? You have to prioritize the most important things to solve the problem. And lastly, you have to generate solutions, or just generate one solution depending on the problem you're analyzing. So here I have a very simple solution, which is install speed bumps. So this will generate that all of the cars slow down whenever they are driving around the zone. And of course, I consider that will diminish the amount of people that will be injured by speeding up drivers. All right. So now it's time for your evaluation. So for this, you have to complete the specifications in the attached Word document. So in the Google Classroom, I attached a specific Word document that you need to use for the evaluation this week. And you need to follow the rubric specified, I'm sorry, there should be AD, in page number 2 from topic 5.05 in Agilex. So make sure to check the rubric because that is what I'm going to use in order to evaluate your work. So it's been a pleasure having some sort of contact with you this week. Thank you for attending the class one more time. And I really hope that you are safe at home. So I wish you the best, and I will see you next week. Goodbye, guys. Take care.